Hey y'all, Zelda here. I am coming to you with a tarot reading. It's been a while. It's going to be a pick a pile tarot reading, and it is specifically a tarot reading for survivors of trauma, whatever that means to you. If you haven't experienced that, you're certainly welcome to watch if you feel called to. But this is going to be focused to folks who are in their healing process. The reason that I am focusing on that is a very beloved friend of mine, Karina of at Femme Supremacy. They are currently doing their Kickstarter for their deck. And it is the Survivor Affirmation deck. This was one of the earlier ones that I got when they first came out, and now they're doing a larger run so that more people can share in these awesome magic. And so um, each of them is going to have one of those affirmations associated with them. So, this is a pick a pile. So I invite you to take a minute to drop into your body, whatever that means to you. I'm going to call in our good spirits to do this reading. And I will put in the description of this the time stamp for each pile. So, pile number one, pile number two, or pile number three. So as you're kind of dropping in, you can see which pile feels right to you. This is an opportunity to practice trusting your own intuition and seeing what messages come to you. You are certainly welcome to watch all the way through, but that is how this reading is designed to allow you to select an option, choose your own adventure, and see what resonates and leave the rest. If you're ready to drop in, taking some deep breaths, settling into your body. I've already called in the directions of the east, south, west, and north. Welcome, welcome above and below, within and without. Benevolent spirits of the cosmos, spirit of our Father Sun, Grandmother Moon, and Mother Earth, spirits of land, water, fire, and air. Ascended ancestors, wise and well, good spirits, gods, guardians, and guides who surround, support, and uplift myself, Zelda Faye, and all of the beloved folks who are watching this video in whatever time, space, and place they may be doing so. We thank you for your protection and your generosity through both the shadows and the light. We thank you, Creator, for this moment. We thank all the versions of ourselves, past, present, future, greater, and shadow from this and every timeline for aligning us here now. It is in love that I open this circle today and receive these energy and spirits here. May we be ever present to receive. Okay, so if you chose pile number one, what it looks like, yeah? And so I'm going to turn them over and show them to you. I haven't seen them yet. So pile number one, this is your affirmation from the Survivor Affirmation deck. Thriving, not surviving. The Six of Swords, or this is actually a deck, so the Six of Spades. And the Seven of Pentacles. What should we share about this today? Six of Swords feels like it speaks to how when we kind of like come out, like the five can feel very like a contraction, like a fist, right? Like contracted. And the six is like starting to open up, like, and it's interesting because I see the six and I thought about the five and then the seven. And it feels like there's this like opening that because it has been a long journey to this point does not mean that it will be a long journey forward. Yeah, that we actually do have to widen our threshold for like experiencing positive things after experiencing so many challenge. Um, I'm going to read the phrase of intention from the Seven of Pentacles. This is from the Hollow Valley Tarot Guidebook. I love these phrase of intentions, even though we're not using that deck. So the Seven of Pentacles says, I see beauty in the process of growth. This is exactly right. It says the Seven of Pentacles represents a growing season. You planned out your garden, you planted all the seeds, and now the only thing to do is to keep showing up to water the plants to see what happens. There's a sense of restriction, structure, and discipline in this card that, depending on your personality and circumstances, could feel grating or difficult. But this has to do with there being magic available to us no matter what step we are in the process. Um, this feels like I kind of just curious what they say in the little decks. I will link the other decks as well because I do love these. Let's see. Spades. I never have used this before actually, because I just go with intuitive, but I feel called to invite these little books today. Okay, the Six of Spades. Progress. The light at the tunnel is there, even if it feels far away. Sustainability. So with thriving, not surviving, this feels like you enjoying your life is a big deal. Like you feeling the fruits of your labor of the healing process. The healing process can be so long and arduous, right? It can feel like after something happens to us, whether it's many cumulative things like with CPTSD or something specific or whatever it is, you don't have to label it. But with those things, it can feel like, oh, this thing happens, but then there's like all of this like unraveling and unwinding and healing process that honestly can really go on forever. It's like we can feel healed, but healing is a process, not a like static location. And it feels really important to this to remember that your healing ongoing process, you deserve to feel like you enjoy it. You deserve to have resources that actually feel enjoyable and supportive to you. You deserve to have, connections with other people who share your experience, people who make the work feel lighter. With the Seven of Pentacles, I'm seeing this like this is the part we can see, right? And then there's all of this below the surface, right? We can see these, but there's all of this down here. And this feels like being able to take a look at where do you want to like water the seeds of delight, of joy, of embodiment in your life? And how do you get to focus not on just like keeping your head above water, but seeing your joy as a fundamental part of your world? It is not a secondary goal to like stability. In fact, it is something that makes the healing process feel capable of going on, right? That's what this, it feels like the capacity. I also am seeing these eyes, and one of the things that I am noticing is this sense of this is a specific one of my guides' decks, and so they have something they want to share too. A practice that can help to cultivate this quality or give you the spotlight. Like I'm seeing like a spotlight shown on where you want more, which I like notice this like yellow, like feels like that spotlight, right? It's like something that can help is actually writing something more like a tangible list of what actually brings more enjoyment. Like what do you enjoy not for the product, but for the process of it? What makes you feel like, oh, if I was doing that today, life would be worth living. And this could be no matter how small, right? Like there's a bakery in my area that's just like coming to mind. I'm like always thinking about baked goods, apparently. There's a bakery in this area that like if I'm having a bad day, I love going and like getting a pastry and coffee. It's it would definitely be on my list. And those things are just as important as like having a stable place. Like, not saying that like safety, like I understand these like hierarchies in some ways that like sometimes we have to focus on survival and stability, but surviving is not enough to make our lives worthwhile. And so actually identifying these areas where like, what are some of those things that don't cost any money and take very little time. Like, which ones can you actually like slot in and allow to actually nurture those and take up more space and allow you some time to, like, I almost see like soaking in the sun, right? Like letting the sun actually permeate you, knowing where you can go to like get that metaphorically too, right? Like maybe it is being in the sun, but some of us don't like being in the sun. So it's not like that. It's just that feeling of like, how do you like take and absorb in the sweetness of life? The orange on this card, one of the amazing things about this deck, is the colors. I feel like the orange is actually a little bit different than it's showing up on camera. It looks really dark here. It's a little bit more like poppy orange or something, like a little less dark, I guess. Um, that's feeling like the creativity, right? Like sometimes we think of like sacral of orange, and this feels like um where do you feel that like embodied yes, that feels good, that feels delightful, that feels joyful. You deserve to focus on that in your healing process. That's important, and you deserve to have that in your life. So, is there anything else that you want to share? Okay, so that is group one. Thank you so much. Thriving, not surviving. Pile number two. Welcome. The survivor affirmation is practice self-care every day. This is the Five of Spades, or the Five of Swords, and the Four of Cups. This is the Two Bugs Tarot. How cute is that? But also, hmm, what are you wanting to share? The guide whose deck this is a keeper of the cemetery gates, a um, receiver of that which is surrendered to loss and grief, and is a potent guide and holder of our pain, and also brings the winds of transformation. And the swords are, or the spades, are air. And in the Five of Swords, we can feel so consumed by all of the contraction. Like, it's like all of these like stuck in, right? And it just feels like it's coming from every direction. And it can feel extremely like a contraction mentally, right? Like this can feel like being triggered by something, right? It can feel like all of that wound and hurt actually in that like very contracted place. And these things arise. These are part of having experienced hurt, that sometimes there is a part of self that is in that moment, right? Like an aspect, a fractal of ourself that is feeling that and is outside of the fact that time is moving forward. But time is not linear, right? Especially when we're talking about trauma. And no matter how long it's been, this feels like a practice self-care every day. No matter how long it's been, or how silly it feels, or how much like that feeling, I know this comes up for me of feeling like I thought I was past this already. I thought I was done with it. I thought I did this, right? Like I healed, I felt it, and then we're like wrenched open again by the hurt of the past. And no matter when that happens, what I'm hearing is to have a container to create this care and holding for your emotional space, right? That no matter what is going on, to like create this kind of like area where you can actually feel and be held in your emotions. That doesn't have to look like a normal processing container, or it could, right? It could be like a close friend that you talk to about it. It could be your journal. It could be your therapist or your coach, or whatever alternative healer you choose to connect with, right? Like this is not about like what you should or shouldn't do, but just naming that these are like the processing containers that create that kind of like security. And that's really what I'm seeing here is like the security of the fours. Um, in creating that space to have those feelings and to acknowledge that I see this like 5, 4, there can be a fear that comes up of, if I have this feeling, if it feels this intense, is it going to just get worse again, especially if it's been bad, right? And knowing that sometimes there's just a hard day, right? Caring for ourselves, we have to practice self-care every day. Caring for ourselves is an ongoing process. It is a renewed task, a repeating task. Um, and it's also really sacred work. And so making this space to actually care for yourself and feel your feelings and honor that it doesn't have to be a slippery slope. It can just be like a little bit of like a settling and an integration period before you can move forward. I'm seeing like a spiral. Oh, okay. So I'm seeing this spiral, and I think about this healing in spiral time, or healing as a spiral of like, okay, we heal here, we come around, and then we get like triggered again. But we're able to like cope with it a little bit differently, and we have all these other experiences that integrate, and like, oh, that lesson comes up again, but it's a little different. It's a little, we've grown a little more. We have a little more resource. And yeah, this feels like a big part of it. Okay, don't forget the book. I want to read the phrase of intention for the Four of Cups. It is safe for me to say no to what is not meant for me. It is safe for me to say yes to what I truly want. When Four of Cups comes out, it often asks us to tune into our emotional boundaries. It reminds us that we are each responsible for our own emotions and meeting our needs, and it is a strong ally for sharing your truth, being honest about your emotions, and self-advocacy. It is perfect in that way for doing this work. The five, I want to read the phrase of intention also for the Five of Swords, because I feel like that's here. I am capable of shedding my limiting beliefs. Yeah. I'm curious if there are beliefs that you have about self-care, or about how you hold space for your emotions, or how emotions or self-care is supposed to look, that maybe are outdated and ready to be let go of, right? The color here is like a reddish, like a saturated pinkish red. And it feels like that like root energy, like meeting those basic needs without judgment, without judging what that looks like, what you actually need to feel good. And knowing that you don't have to do that on your own. That can sometimes be a limiting belief of self-care, is that we have to do it all by ourselves. And that couldn't be further from the truth. We need each other now more than ever. Is there anything else that you want to share? A practice. That's a good idea. A practice that can be really helpful when in contraction. And obviously, take or leave this. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for everyone. That's okay. But a practice that can be helpful when we're in this place of contraction and we can't really like get unstuck is, instead of trying to push past it, like instead of trying to relax, right? We can actually like meet the tension where it's at. Something like progressive muscle relaxation, like where you tense your body up really tight, and then you release it. And you tense up really tight and you release it. Yeah. This kind of thing of like meeting the tension. Like it reminds me of like, oh, self-care could be like taking a bath, but it could also be like going and like smashing some shit, right? Like that could really be a benefit of self-care. And that's kind of what I feel like that has, that like meeting the tension where it's at. That I could see being really supportive. Thank you, Anissa. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Pile number two. Um, I appreciate you for watching this, and we're going to move on to pile number three. Welcome, pile number three. Last but very much not least. Um, I knew it wasn't going to work. Initially, I was going to do pick a color instead of pick a pile, and I didn't look at the cards in advance, but I was like, no, we shouldn't do that. Um, oh, interesting. Okay. So the survivor affirmation is I am already whole. I'm already whole. The Two Bugs Tarot is the Nine of Swords. And should I pick another card from this one? No. Okay. This is the one from the, what's it called again? The Council of the Four Corners. Um, it's a deck of playing cards, but also this is one of the cards. And you can see, if it lets you focus on it, that there's someone lying in the water. There's lots of patterns around here. Oh, interesting. And I was looking at it like this, but it really looks like this. Well, it could be upside down, but there's birds up there. Yeah. So it did look kind of reversed, or I picked it up wrong. They don't want me to pull another card. They want me to read with this one. So we'll see what messages they have for you. So let's start with the affirmation, the phrase of intention from the Nine of Swords. For the Nine of Swords, this is from the Valley Type Guidebook. Um, the phrase of intention is, I create my own future from the bones of my past. The Nine of Swords describes the feeling of shame and holds the antidote. When the Nine of Swords comes up in a reading, we are being invited to look at our fear and acknowledge it. It teaches us that to let go and move past old beliefs that are keeping us quiet, small, and scared, we must first look at them for what they are, understand them, and where they came from. This is an interesting one in the context of healing from trauma, right? Because a big part of this card and the energy that comes up is around orienting towards what is scaring us. And that can be really hard, right? In trauma, we often want to avoid the things that trigger us, right? Or create anxiety or discomfort. And this is really about orienting towards that, orienting towards the darkness in a way, or the shame, or what is keeping us feeling stuck. This feels, in the context of I'm already whole, a sense of like, you can do hard things. Yeah. You've already survived so much. If you resonate with being a survivor, you've been through a lot, right? And there's so much that you are capable of, even if you feel, mm, even if you feel broken down by what has happened to you, you are not defined or less than because of these experiences. There's all of this stuff around. I see, oh, I hear it. Okay. So I see this person, right? And there's all of this around here. And the person is like looking like they're facing down. You can see their little butt. You can see their little butt. They're facing down, and it feels like that feeling of like swimming in the water and being scared of like what's under there. And that actually there's a way of like turning and being like, I'm not afraid to look into the depths. Yeah. If there's something that you've been avoiding that you feel like you are incapable of dealing with in some way, and I'm not saying, like I said, you take what resonates and leave the rest. Uh, I am not going to judge anyone for wanting to avoid things that bring them discomfort. I have done the same in many instances, and I get that. And for the purpose of this reading, there is an invitation that if there's something you've been avoiding or you feel like is just impossible in your healing process, this is an invitation to remember that you have the tools that you need to face your darkness and walk away befriended. Walk away befriending the parts of you that have been tugging you around because they're afraid, right? I'm seeing this image of this like little kind of like like running after someone and the person's like running away and then they turn around and they're like, let me take your hand instead. And there's like this facing, this kind of like confronting, and then the sense of like, oh, yeah, like sometimes contacting and connecting the wholeness and the parts of us that are just waiting to come back home, that want to be reintegrated. This can have so much magic and potency. This is also a really powerful affirmation to hold in combination with these feelings of shame that like you do not need to get to this like perfect healed state to be whole, to feel healed, to be able to be healed enough to like live your best life. Like you don't have to wait for anything else. Like you don't need to wait to be in a relationship with someone that you care about, right? This sense of like, oh, I need to like heal and fix everything about myself so I'm like ready. It's like you can heal in relationships. You can heal while chasing after your dreams. You can heal while simultaneously building these other things. And so acknowledging that your healing process is not this like slog that you have to like achieve or get to, but actually that you have all of the tools that you need to engage with this. I think the Nine of Swords can often be like all of these like stories and just like mm, it can feel burdensome, right? And it can feel scary. And it can feel hard to see a way out. And that's why the phrase, especially saying it in this way of I'm already whole, acknowledges that you get to start from where you are. The mm, mhm. A practice that I could see being really supportive is being able to um, practice like floating in water. You have to like release a lot of your body, right? And it's like almost like a trust fall with yourself. Even like in a bath where you can like easily, like, I'm not saying like go find a lake and like jump in if you're like scared of water. No, I more mean like in a float tank or if you have a body of water nearby or just in your bathtub or even imagining like really propping up your body like with pillows and coziness and just like imagining floating and like kind of like releasing into your body. Because I think that in this, there is a big kind of like surrendering to the wholeness that is already there and less about like doing, like it can feel like, I don't see how it's going to happen. It'll never work out. And the I'm already whole feels like it's happened. It's happening. Here it is. Right? Like there's not a lot of doing necessary. And so leaning into the yield or the surrender of that part of the process feels really useful. Is there anything else that you want to share? Yes. What? Hmm. This also feels like an invitation, okay, to be mindful of like what you take in terms of like if there are self-help books or mindsets or ways of thinking that actually feel like they keep you stuck. Like you feel like, oh, if I just had the right mindset, then I would actually like if blank, then blank. That like now is not necessarily the time to invest more deeply into those. That like investing into things that uncover the inherent internal capacity may be really supportive. Things that are holistic is kind of what I'm hearing. And that things should be, this came up in pile one, but like with the orange, it feels like creative. It feels um like something you move towards. It feels kind of juicy. It feels like there's a lot of potential for it to be something that isn't such a burden. And so I encourage, like, if there is a way that your um, process right now feels fatiguing or exhausting or impossible, then maybe it's not you. Maybe something else needs to be switched up. Yeah. Is that it? Yes. Okay. Okay, so that is pile one, two, and three. Thank you so much for watching. I am going to link Karina's Survivor Affirmation deck Kickstarter live. The other two decks that we used today were also backed on Kickstarter. I love a good Kickstarter. Backing for decks is where I get most of my favorite decks. The Council of the Four Corners is the one of them, and the Two Bugs Tarot was the other. And then the one that is currently live, those ones aren't live anymore. They're from a couple of years, like last year and the year before. The one that is live is Karina's Survivor Affirmation deck, and you can find that in the description. Sending you lots of love. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.